Hello, Stacey Murphy here with a video on seeding, and I'm going to be showing you two techniques how to seed into your garden beds outdoors. I'm going to show you how to direct seed and something called broadcasting and what the differences are. And when I say you are 4 weeks from food on your table, what I mean by that, on the screen there is arugula, there is lettuce mix, and there are radishes. Those are all things that are going to come out of the ground within about 21 days, as well as some spinach, which is about 25 days, so that's about 3 weeks away. And then you can also put in turnips, red beets. Those are things that are going to be ready in 40 days, a little bit more than 4 weeks. And then there are crops that are a little bit longer than that. Sometimes your carrots will take more like 50 or 60 days. And onions, again, will be a little bit longer than that, maybe 60 days. So you are just a couple weeks away from food when you direct seed, as long as you have the right conditions with warm enough temperatures and enough moisture. All right, so what I've done so far is I have laid out my planting bed. I know where everything is going. I've marked where I'm going to put rows of seeds down. And now what I'm going to do first is I'm going to do some direct seeding. And when I direct seed, the basic instructions are to create troughs at a specified seed depth that's on the seed packet. You're going to place those seeds in the spacing that's recommended on the package, and you're then going to cover those. You're going to gently press that soil over the seeds and water the whole bed evenly. And I'm going to show you how to do all of this in just one moment. All right, so one thing to note, what did I use to mark out my rows? Well, what I had was chopsticks laying around, so that's what I used. Just, so you can use sticks, you can use whatever is handy. All right, I'm going to go ahead and lay down my seeds now. So what I'm going to do is where I've marked out my chopsticks, these are straight rows across the whole bed. I'm going to take my trowel, I'm going to take the side of the trowel, and I'm just going to kind of jiggle the soil to create a little trough. And I'm going to press lightly on that trough with the edge of my trowel. And what I'm doing is I'm creating a nice little seed bed. Seeds like a little bit of hard soil around the seed so that it can actually root. It wants air, but it wants a little bit of stiffness as well. So now you can see me just how long it takes me. I'm going to do the whole bed now, and I'm going to go across the whole bed. This is not a close-up image, but you can just get a sense that it only takes a couple minutes to do this process. And I'm going to do all 4 rows at once. I find that I save time when I work by doing all of one task at first. So I'm going to create all my troughs first before I go to lay in my seeds. And a couple more things about laying out these troughs. You can use whatever's handy to you. You can use the side of your hand if that works well for you, if your soil is loose enough, and hopefully your soil is loose enough to use a tool like this. If it's too hard, that means that the seeds are going to have a hard time rooting because there's not going to be a whole lot of space for them to grow roots. So you want some nice loose soil. You can use the side of your hand. You can kind of use a tool and drag it along to create that trough. I just find that I get a better straight trough by using the edge of the trowel and carefully going across. So here you can see what that looks like. I have 4 straight lines. This is why I like to lay it out ahead of time to make sure that those lines are actually straight and that they are the right distance apart. And I'm going to go through and just make sure it's a nice seed bed. And now I'm going to measure with my thumbnail to see how deep they are. The seeds that I'm planting, they are 4 different types of seeds and 4 different depths. But you don't have to be too precise. Don't worry about it too much. Seeds are pretty forgiving. All right, so these are my radish seeds, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to direct seed them by putting them on the edge of my fingers. I'm going to use my thumb to kind of tip those seeds out onto the ground. And I can do this fast or slow. The faster I go, the more seeds come out at once and sometimes not as precise, and that's okay. I don't mind so much. I like planting extra and making sure that I get all my radishes coming up. And then I basically squeeze and pinch the soil back over the top of those seeds. And then once I squeeze and pinch, then I press very gently that line of seeds to make sure that those they have a nice bed. So now I'm going to just do the whole line just so you get a sense of how long it takes to plant the row. And you'll notice I'm not super precise. Typically a radish, you're going to have one grow every inch or so. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back through later and I'm going to thin these. So I'm actually planting more than I need. You're welcome to plant exactly how many you need if you are on a frugal budget and you don't want to waste any seeds by growing just sprouts out of them. But I like radish sprouts on my salad, so I'm going to grow quite a bit and then thin them out as I go. So that's about how long it takes me to plant a row. And then I'm going to basically go on to the next set of seeds, and these are the turnips. And these seeds are similar to radishes. They are in the same family. They're mustards. Both of these seeds have very shallow depths. They only need like an eighth of an inch to a quarter of an inch of soil above them to sprout really well. And you can see that they look similar to those radish seeds. They're just a little bit darker. So I'm just going to roll them off the tip of my fingers. And these are harder to see because they're a darker color. They're more brown like the soil. So it's a little bit harder to see the spacing. But I'm just going to very gently and quickly go through this line and drop these seeds in that trough. So again, it doesn't take me very long to plant my row. You can be very precise and use exactly the number of seeds that you want, and it might take you twice as long or 3 times as long to plant them, depending on the dexterity of your hand. But it's up to you. I like to just go quickly and thin it later. Now I'm going to do a series of carrot seeds, and you'll notice that these are a different family. These look different. They're kind of an odd shape and kind of a strange texture. And carrots take longer to sprout than the previous two. Those first two are going to come up first, and these are going to take longer. I like to plant, even if the other crops, if I'm only planting exactly how many I need. With carrots, I definitely like to plant extra because carrots take a long time to sprout. And what that means is that if I make a mistake and they don't come up, if not every carrot comes up and I've planted only exactly how many I need, then I have to wait another week to find out if I have enough carrots. So I plant a lot of carrots because they take longer to sprout. Now I'm going to plant some beets, and you're going to see the difference in the beet size. The seeds of the beet are very large. They're in the spinach family, so they look very similar to spinach seeds. Check out how large those are. So these like a little bit deeper planting. So this trough is a little bit deeper than the others, and I'm a little bit more cautious with these because I know that beet seeds tend to grow really well. It's very rare that you get a low germination rate on beets. Oh, I planted too many, so I'm going to pull those, I'm going to pick those up and move those over. And then I'm going to continue on the line. So if you do accidentally dump a bunch in one spot, you can pick them up and move them. I just find that a couple extra is okay. And now you see me doing that pinching, and see how fast I can work across the row and then patting down that row. And then I'm going to do the next row. I'm going to just quickly pinch that soil back over the seeds. And notice it doesn't take much time. Pat down the soil, give it a nice seed bed. Again, same thing with the carrots. I'm on the carrot row this time. And you can do this whole seeding pretty quickly, right? And with the final row, what you're going to notice, this is with my beets, there are some beets that I like to make sure, that's one. If it comes to the surface, I want to make sure that I punch it down a little bit deeper. Sometimes when you pinch the row, there's a seed that shows up at the surface, and with beets, I just like to make sure that they're lower in the soil. With the turnips and the radish and the carrot, if they're a little bit higher in the soil, it doesn't matter because they're small seeds and they don't need very deep planting. And here we are, we're almost done with 4 rows of direct seeding. So you'll notice that it maybe took me a couple minutes to do this whole process. And you just planted lots and lots of food that's going to be ready in just a couple weeks. All right, so broadcasting seeds is the next thing to do. And this is when you want a good crop carpet, so to speak. You're going to create a blanket of greens. And this is where you're going to put down a lot of seeds in an area. It's going to grow into this lush carpet. You're going to plant 250 seeds per square foot. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a minute. And the types of crops that you want to plant for this: arugula, lettuce, spinach, mustards, and your cover crops. If you're somebody who is growing throughout the year, this is something that you can do for cover crops as well. Basically, what you're doing when you're broadcasting seeds is you start with your seeds in the palm of your hand, And similar to that direct seeding, you're going to sprinkle those seeds off the end of your fingers across the bed. You want to do this close to the bed for control. And these types of crops that are broadcast usually like a very thin layer of soil over the top of it. And the easiest way to do that is to sprinkle compost over the top or whatever you have handy, and then use the water to kind of push those seeds into the soil. And I'll show you how to do all this. And this is the first crop that we're going to broadcast. It is spinach, and you can see that the seeds are large. They're in the beet family, so they're similar to beets. And I'm broadcasting around the cabbage. The cabbage will come in later than the spinach, so I'll harvest the spinach and then the cabbage will come in later. And you'll notice that I'm not too precious. I'm basically just jiggling it off the edge of my hand. This spacing is approximately 100 seeds per square foot. So this is about half as dense as I normally plant, and the reason is that I'm planting it around another crop. Now I'll show you what 250 seeds looks like per square inch. This is arugula, and you can see the seeds are very similar to the other mustard family. The radishes and the turnips are in the same family. You can see how small they are. So that is about 250 seeds in my hand, and I'm going to sprinkle it about 1 square foot. That's it. And I'm going to do that one more time because I have another square foot. And then I'm actually going to double it because I want to make sure that this comes in really thick and lush. And now I'm going to cover it with a little bit of potting mix. This is what I had handy. I would recommend something more like compost, but sometimes things are not perfect, and this is what I had on hand. It will still work. In your garden, there are lots of things that are perfect and other things that can work just fine. So now I've covered those different areas where the arugula has been planted with that potting mix, and I still need to cover those spinach seeds. And then once I do, I'm basically going to water the whole bed in. I want to make sure that I keep those seeds nice and moist for as long as it takes until they sprout. Now, there is a whole video on watering in general, but the basic rule of thumb is that if the surface of your garden bed is 30% dry, then you want to go ahead and water it and make sure that the top is moist, because those seeds, they're really only taking moisture from the top surface. That's as deep as they are. There's no way for them to get watered at a deeper level because they don't have any root systems yet. So you want to keep that surface moist. And now take a look at the progress. Day 4, we can start to see little sprouts of arugula, and that's exciting. We can also start to see some sprouts of the spinach as well. If you look closely, you can kind of see them. And in day 5, you really start to see a lot of that arugula starting to show up. It's very cute. These are what are called cotyledons. They are not true leaves of the plant. They are the first things to sprout on any plant, and later the true leaves will come. And also on day 5, if you look closely, you can see here there is starting to be a line of radishes, which is exciting. And then on day 7, you can really see the line of turnips and the line of radishes starting to form, as well as the spinach really coming out. And here's a little close-up of day 7, so you can see what those look like. On day 10, really pronounced lines of turnips and radishes. You can see where I have a couple skips in the line, and you can see that I have a lot of seeds planted. It's growing in really nice and densely, and you can see that spinach as well. And then here's a close-up of what that spinach looks like. On day 10, you can see the seed pods kind of on the top of those seeds still, and the beets are coming up on day 10. Exciting. Day 12, you can really start to see that line of beets starting to form. And if you look closely at all of the different lines here, you will see little teeny tiny carrots starting to sprout on day 12, and nice little spurts of radishes and turnips in those lines. We're getting close to the point where we could thin and have a little bit of a sprout salad. And then here on day 12, a close-up, you can really see what those beets and carrots look like. On day 14, again, you're just starting to see those lines more and more defined, right? So things are coming up. We're keeping things nice and moist, and everything is going really well. So from here, you're just going to keep watering, keeping everything moist, and by day 21, you're going to start to see things like the arugula potentially large enough to cut and eat, and I'll show you how to do that. And we'll start to see maybe our first radishes around day 25. I'll show you when that happens as well. So keep up the moisture, take a look at the watering video, and that'll get you started.